The World Health Organization says the Omicron variant has now been identified in at least 89 countries worldwide. Senior health officials warn that it's spreading much faster than the Delta strain. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has declared a major incident in the capital as concern grows about the fast spread of the Omicron variant. This means a greater pooling of resources between local authorities and the emergency services. A number of European countries have reintroduced COVID restrictions. France is tightening rules on foreign arrivals. It's also banning big public parties and firework displays. Additional restrictions have also been announced in Germany, Ireland, and the Netherlands. And a typhoon which ripped through the Philippines is now known to have killed at least 31 people. Many others are still missing.
Officials are urging people to take precautions as the Omicron variant is spreading rapidly in the U.S., Europe, and in other countries. In New York City, officials said they were adding COVID-19 testing sites as the positivity rate has doubled over a 3-day period through Sunday. And in the U.K., cases have risen in parts of the country, doubling about every 1.5 days. But health officials in South Africa reported significantly lower hospitalization rates than earlier in the pandemic, despite a surge of infections. We report exclusively that Blackstone is in advanced talks to acquire a 49% stake in a new Manhattan office tower. The deal, which values the One Manhattan West skyscraper at $2.85 billion, would be the latest sign that the pandemic and the spread of Omicron aren't deterring investors from spending top dollar for luxury office space. And Hong Kong is preparing to hold its first elections since China's national security crackdown. Voters will choose from a slate of approved candidates, those vetted as loyal to the country's ruling Communist Party, while dozens of would-be opposition contenders are in prison and others are barred from running at all. Opinion polls point to a historic drop in turnout for Sunday's voting.
Japan's Prime Minister Kishida Fumio says he's going to extend toughened border restrictions into early next year in the face of the spreading Omicron variant. On November 30th, the government implemented measures that effectively banned new entry of all foreign nationals and added stricter quarantine rules for anyone returning from countries where the variant had been confirmed. The measures were originally set to be in place for 1 month. Kishida says he's implemented the highest level measures of all Group of 7 nations because the variant has so many unknowns.
We must carefully assess the situation during the year-end and New Year holidays until the actual situation of the Omicron variant becomes clearer.
Kishida says the current measures will continue until early next year and that they could be extended. The World Health Organization has added a coronavirus vaccine developed by US firm Novavax to its emergency use listing. The organization is hoping to increase access to vaccinations in lower-income countries. The vaccine, named Covovax, is produced by the Serum Institute of India under license from Novavax. It's considered a good fit for developing countries because it can be stored in standard refrigerators. Covovax was developed with support from the COVAX facility. That's a WHO-led framework for creating and distributing coronavirus vaccines. COVAX was expected to distribute 2 billion vaccine doses this year. It's only provided about 700 million so far. Coronavirus infections in Europe are hitting unprecedented levels, especially in Britain. Health officials confirmed more than 93,000 cases on Friday, a record for the 3rd consecutive day. The figure is up more than 4,600 from Thursday's tally. Officials say more than 14,900 people have been infected with the Omicron variant. They estimate it accounts for about 80% of all cases in London.
If everybody's safe and sensible, then I think, we've got a good chance of getting through this.
The resurgence of the virus is hurting public services. Officials say nearly a third of the capital's fire engines were out of action over the past week due to personnel shortages. There are concerns hospitals could face the same problem. Hospitality is also being hit hard. Pubs and restaurants had been preparing for increased demand during the holiday season, but they're taking booking cancellations.
I actually don't know the number. Maybe I don't want to count, but we've lost hundreds.
Authorities plan to speed up the rollout of booster vaccines. About 38% of the population has received a 3rd jab so far. The families of Japanese people abducted by North Korea have made one appeal after another to get their loved ones back. Now they've lost one of their biggest allies. Iizuka Shigeo spent years spearheading campaigns for the return of the missing. He's died of illness at the age of 83. Iizuka had been in poor health since 2017 and was hospitalized in mid-November. North Korea carried out the abductions in the 1970s and 80s. Iizuka headed a group of the victims' relatives. He met 7 Japanese prime ministers over the course of his work and urged them all to do more on the issue. The younger brother of abductee Yokota Megumi has expressed his grief at Iizuka's passing. Yokota Takuya took Iizuka's place earlier this month as head of the abductee action group.
I'm devastated by this sudden news. Mr. Iizuka had been fighting on the front line to rescue abductees, but in the end, he was unable to meet his abducted sister. It really hurts my heart to think about this.
And Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio has offered his condolences to Iizuka's family. Kishida said when he met Iizuka, he was impressed with his determination to never give up.
I pledge not to miss any opportunity to resolve this issue.
The Prime Minister also said he's aware that the family members are aging and that no time should be lost in resolving the issue. Myanmar's ousted de facto leader Aung San Suu Kyi has reportedly appeared in court in a prison uniform. A local media outlet quoted sources as saying Aung San Suu Kyi wore a white top and brown wraparound sarong, Myanmar's regulation prison outfit. It said she reportedly appeared calm and brave during the hearing. Aung San Suu Kyi was sentenced to 4 years in jail on incitement and other charges. The sentence was later halved. She's still on trial for at least 10 other charges, including corruption. Analysts say the decision to make her attend court in a prison uniform appears to have been a ploy by the military to undermine her authority. Afghanistan's ambassador to the UN has resigned following a months-long effort by the Taliban to replace him. Ghulam Isaaqzai was appointed by the country's previous government. A UN spokesperson said he received a letter from Afghanistan's UN mission to notify him of the resignation. Isaaqzai held on to his post even after the Taliban regained power in August. He was critical of the Islamic group's policies on women's rights and other issues. The mission says Minister Councillor Nasir Ahmad Faiq will serve as the country's acting envoy. The Taliban nominated Suhail Shaheen, a senior official of the group, to be its representative. But the UN Credentials Committee postponed a decision on the matter, allowing Isaaqzai to stay on. Shaheen tweeted that the UN should prove its neutrality by giving Afghanistan's seat to the current government and allowing him to represent his country. The world's big credit risk assessors are losing confidence in Chinese real estate giant Evergrande. S&P Global Ratings has become the second agency to declare the debt-ridden firm in default. On Friday, S&P announced it was downgrading Evergrande to selective default, a term used to describe a missed payment. Fitch Ratings made a similar move on December 9th. Days earlier, Evergrande reportedly failed to pay creditors interest payments of about $82 million after a grace period had expired. Chinese authorities are moving to increase their involvement in the firm. The country's leaders have also suggested they'll aim to stabilize the property market in the coming year. And finally, he's the jet-powered robot boy with machine guns in his hips. And he was the star of Japan's first full-length anime series. He's Astro Boy, of course, and now he's got an exhibition in one of the anime world's most hallowed buildings. The Tokiwaso building in Tokyo was the home of many prominent manga artists in the post-war years. It was demolished in the 1980s, but has been rebuilt in faithful detail. One of its original residents was Tezuka Osamu, the creator of Astro Boy. Some of Tezuka's scripts, film strips and storyboards are on display at what's now known as the Tokiwaso Manga Museum. The exhibition shows how Tezuka adapted his animation style to create 30-minute episodes, which was unprecedented at the time.
I'm a big fan of Mr. Tezuka. I was thrilled to see original drawings and film strips I've never seen before.
The original Astro Boy anime ran from 1963 to 1966. At its peak, it enjoyed a more than 40% share of the viewing figures.